Right away, the first thing that I have to say is that you've always been a beyond curious type of person, but it's really funny because as soon as I lean into your curiosity about yourself, I also hear the phrase curiosity killed the cat. Okay. And that actually was like a catalyst to this because you had to, oh man, I think you got your heart broken. It was not good. And it made you be like, it feels to me very much as if you agreed to have significant losses in your life and actually more experiential than loss of people so far, if you can understand that. Also, I would say for you, one of your most dominant clairs as well would be claircognizance.
Very hard time.
My
Would
father's
cry. I'd be
I
like, oh,
know,
Mom.
she's like so upset about it. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this? He's like, oh, they hate those tattoos. They hated the tattoos.
Okay, so trust me when I say if there was ever a time to pull the trigger on a mediumship reading, it's today. Okay? We have Mel Farr on the podcast. She was phenomenal. She's so funny. And I kind of feel like I dropped the ball a little bit. My energy was kind of like, but she came ready to go. Like, I know what to expect from these readings, and I was blown away today. I mean, I feel like she nailed it through and through from things in my past that you just cannot know. And they were so important to me in my childhood and growing up and in my 20s and just across the board. It's fantastic. If you've been wanting to do a mediumship reading, I'm telling you right now, book it with Mel. If you've been wanting to learn, she has spots available. This opportunity doesn't come across all the time. So book it now. You can do it over Zoom. You don't have to be local. I really appreciate you guys being here. Please consider leaving me a like or comment. It helps me get closer to doing this full time, which is my ultimate goal. If you're new and you feel like subscribing, I'm not going to stop you. Anyways, let's let's get on with it. Without further ado, here is Mel. But yeah, let's start with the conversation. Would love to start with how you became a medium, how this kind of all came to light. I don't know if you were born
No.
seeing auras and spirits, or if this is something new that you came across. But would love to let's start there actually.
Okay,
And
cool.
then we'll hop into it.
I was not one of those people who was seeing spirits since I was a kid. Even now, I just tell them that shit really freaks me out, seeing a
Yeah.
spirit outside my body. So I always say, let's just keep it up here, which is working subjectively as a medium, right? Where everything really is similar to paying attention to a daydream. I have always been very left-brained, analytical. I was an online marketing strategist for 8 years, so I've been a serial entrepreneur. And I remember in my book I was writing about this time that I was coaching clients and like 50% of them were spiritual entrepreneurs. And I was like, who are these people? Can't they be more specific about their offers? Can't they talk in detail about their ideal client? And I remember thinking, gosh, if I was in that industry, I just have to figure it out quick and know exactly how to pinpoint my ideal client, but I could do it. And, I sounded kind of like a jackass about it. And then I had my daughter and I retired that business and I moved from New York to Colorado and we sold our condo like virtually. It was just all a big mishmash. And about 2 years after I had my daughter, I was just kind of craving meditation because I'd done that a lot in my previous business. And so I started doing meditation and my partner was traveling a lot of times for work. So I had like this time alone and I had an experience where I actually objectively felt my hands being held. And I knew, and then I just instantly kind of claircognizantly knew that it was my grandmother's. And so I had communication from my grandmother who I hadn't spoken to for 9 years before she passed. And I thought, why am I making things up like this? Like, do I need attention that badly? What's happening right now? And then I watched Laura Lynn Jackson, who's a famous medium. I watched a Netflix series. And while I was watching it, I had this very strange out of body experience where I felt like, I think I know exactly how to do this, but like right now. And I think I've done this for like lifetimes. And it was really strange. So I eventually did a couple more things. I hired 2 different mediums and I was like a horrible client. Like that person who sits there and doesn't respond, just, like deadpans them.
Yeah.
And both of these people told me things like, oh, you've been speaking to your paternal grandmother in spirit, and I was like, oh. And they validated some other crazy things. And I was like, I don't know. I don't think you can make this shit up. This is really strange. So after that, I decided, okay, well, if I'm a medium, then I'm going to test this out because that's how I do. So I was at like a mama meetup with my new baby and there was this really nice woman, and I just walked over to her and I was like, I feel like I can tell you that some really strange things have been happening to me. Would you be willing to come to my house and we'll just probably sit there in silence for a few minutes? And she was like, I'm totally into this stuff. And I didn't know her, so I was like, really? So she came to my house and I was like, okay, 10 minutes of silence, nothing's going to happen. You can get up and leave. Okay, that's all. And I don't know, it must have been 30 minutes later, but I was like, oh my gosh, I think your grandmother on your mother's side is here, your aunt, so your mom's sister. Here's how both of them died. Here's the timing they died in. Oh, here's a necklace. And she's like, I have that at my house right now. And I was like, oh, here's a shawl. And she's like, that's my grandma's. It smells like her. I have that at my house too. So it just went on and on. And then we did an ugly cry at the end. And we were like, what's happening to both of us? So it just took me by storm. And I was thinking, like, do I need to be institutionalized? I wondered that for a while. But then when you sit down with enough people and you start saying things that they understand, and sometimes some of it extremely detailed stuff,
Mhm.
when you're like, I don't think you can make this up. I think clearly, we're all energetic beings. We're working with energy, and somehow there's a way to connect with it and communicate with it. And really, is it all that strange just because we haven't measured it? I guess I don't think so anymore.
Mm. Yeah, for sure. I mean, there are friends of mine that absolutely roll their eyes when I talk about mediums, and then there's others who don't, and it's kind of like, I don't know. Sometimes I want to say to them, like, well, I thought you sound like you're like a pretty logical guy over here. Don't you feel like I would know if it's absolute BS? And it's like, I don't know. Some people have a hard time with that. There is a, and I don't, maybe you can help me with this, but there is services, right, where you can get accredited or validated. What would that be called? Like you can get a certificate, if you will.
Yeah,
Uh,
there are different places where you can be certified, like the
certified
Forever
is the word.
Family Foundation.
Okay.
You could go to the Forever Family Foundation, especially because you are working with a lot of times, let's say you're going to read for parents who have a deceased child, right? You want to be at a certain level of
Hmm.
accuracy. There are places like that. But I will say I completely understand skeptics because it's a completely unregulated industry.
Hmm.
And while there are fraudulent people in every industry, there's definitely fraudulent people in this industry, or people who are beginners who start working professionally and maybe their accuracy isn't at the level that I would suggest, which is 90% of the time, 90% of your evidence is accurate. That's my rule. I didn't read it somewhere. I just say it because that's what I would expect if I was going to pay for something. But the thing that a lot of people don't understand about mediumship or working psychically is that a lot of it is interpretation. So, do you care if I explain a couple things
No,
about
go
how
for it.
mediumship
Yeah,
works?
go for it.
I do this before every time I read, no matter who I'm reading for. So, most mediums work subjectively, and that means that we're communicating with a spirit via the mind. When a spirit sends an idea to you, it's just that it's a simple idea. We call it a spiritual impression. So, spirit is impressing you with a thought. But as an example, let's say that I see an apple, and that's just in my mind's eye. It's clairvoyant, clear seeing. So, I see the image of an apple. Well, what does that mean? Does it mean that it's a symbol for New York? Is it a symbol that the spirit or the sitter was a teacher? Does it mean that the spirit or the sitter liked apples? Is it the beginning of a memory being shared with me about picking apples in an apple orchard? It could be all of those, and it could be none of those. And since they only send one thought at a time, sometimes you need a whole string of spiritual impressions to derive the meaning behind what's being communicated. Or sometimes you need all of your clairs to come and start working in conjunction, the same way that your senses as an incarnated person work in conjunction. Like let's say that I get on this interview, and obviously this wouldn't happen, but let's say that you're like, hello, it's like I hear you saying hello, but clairsentient, or like I feel, oh gosh, I don't know if this guy really wants to interview me. And I hear the tone of your voice, and that gives me something, right? So that's just an example. But those senses that I use as a living person are working in conjunction, and as a medium, they work in conjunction as well. And so sometimes we need to sense more about one impression, or sometimes we need more impressions to get the meaning. Coming full circle, what I'm saying is that there could be someone who is not fraudulent, but they're at a certain stage of their development where they're seeing the apple and saying, oh, your mom was a teacher. And you're like, no, my mom was not a teacher. But it turns out that her mom did live in New York City. And so Is the spiritual impression legit? Yes. Is the interpretation off? 100%. And that's generally the reason that a medium doesn't share a lot of things that you recognize. Or it could be that they're fraudulent. My aunt just told me this story about she and my other aunt went to go to a medium because I just tell them I don't like to read for family and friends. So I guess they went and sat with this medium. Anyway, it was hilarious. It was like they showed she wanted pictures, which is totally legit and ethical. So my aunt showed her a picture of her father-in-law who is in hospice and going to pass away very soon. And the woman looked at this picture and she's like, oh, yes. She's like rubbing the picture. This man is in excellent health. And my mom was like, what? And so it was like every example of that went on forever. And she and her sister left and they like couldn't look at each other because they were like, why did we pay for that? You know?
Yeah. Oh gosh.
I
No,
know.
and I've had some readings where it can get awkward a little bit. Like if you don't, you're like because you're trying to be like, at least me, I don't want anyone to feel bad. And I understand there is a interpretation element going
Yeah.
on. It is a little bit like playing, phone, that little game where you gotta, I don't
Oh,
know.
yeah. I
It's
can imagine
interesting.
you just being like, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always like, okay, it could be. Yeah, it could be. Let me think
Well, and
about this for
sometimes
a
it
little bit.
could be.
Yes.
Fair
It
enough.
could
Like,
it could come later, right? Like I've had that happen a couple times where something that was said in the moment I didn't quite register, and then later on I was like, "Oh, they were talking about that." And so it does make sense. Where do you see mediumship going to, like in the very near future? Because it does feel, even my short time being involved in this space, that it's definitely on the rise as far as popularity and acceptance. Maybe acceptance is a better way to put that. Do you feel this is going to get to a place where it is,
a mainstream thing.
yeah, like where it is just absolutely accepted? And if so, how long do you think that's going to be?
Oh man, I have so many feelings right now. Well, I'll start by saying that when there is division in a country or globally, people generally rely more on spirituality. But the expression of it will look very different for a lot of people. There's a lot of people who consider themselves spiritual but not religious. I would fall into that category. There's other people who very much associate spirituality with their religion, right? And so I've actually looked at at this research because I just had it in my book, and 7 to 10 people in the United States actually consider themselves spiritual as of, I believe, 2023.
Wow.
But it does mean a lot of different things to people. That doesn't translate into an acceptance of mediumship. But I also feel at this time that there's a lot more people waking up to their ability, their innate ability to be more spiritual beings or in touch with their spirituality. Does that mean that everyone's going to become a medium or a psychic? No. But I am the last person you would think would be doing this in a lot of ways. And yet I know it's exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, right? So I do think I'm an example of somebody who's all of a sudden it's like the light bulb went on. Um, and one of the reasons I hear during readings a lot from the other side that this is happening is, um, to take humanity to a better place where people are continuing their soul evolution. Um, but at the same time, I will also say that I do believe that we come here for an earthly experience that is both negative and positive. And I think that will always be the case. And I think humans are always going to be divided and then together and divided and then together. But if you look over the course of history, um, we've always progressed to become more or less more humane than less. I mean, if you look at the big picture and you zoom out, we've actually headed in a direction that I think is out of the dark ages over time, no matter how much it might feel like sometimes we're back in them again, right?
Hmm.
So I think it's kind of interesting the way that I do feel more people are being awakened to their innate ability to speak to a spirit or do other things. Um, but I don't feel that that is going to change the fact that we're always going to be divided and then united and divided and united. Because I think that's why we have Earth School, if you
Hmm.
will.
Yeah, for sure. This has been recent. This has been happening to me, but I'm trying to figure out the relationship between spirituality and other beings like aliens and th- th- You know what? I don't know if that's funny, but I literally genuinely get confused because I'm like, okay, like, do you believe in other beings, like Pleiadians, Arcturians? Like, have you heard those been thrown around?
Yeah, I mean, definitely heard of them. Um, Definitely starting to lean more toward believing in them. But if we even look at this in like a statistic or scientific way,
Mhm.
think of how expansive our universe is. I think
Right.
it is so egotistically human to imagine that we are the one Earth that exists where life has been created, you know?
Completely agree.
That is hilarious to me. And so it's funny when people gasp at this idea of like, oh, we're going into alien territory now. But I'm just like, but wait, maybe you're the crazy person because you think that we are God's gift in the one planet in this universe that has life of some kind. So, yes, I would say like a bird's eye yes to that. And the strange thing is, I give spiritual assessments, which is probably what you saw on my channel once, right? So I give spiritual assessments for psychics and mediums where I look into their spiritual path. And sometimes all kinds of weird stuff comes up. But I have had a couple of people where, like, I was talking to this man and I was like, I feel very strongly that your spirit team is telling me that you actually incarnated from someone else, somewhere else other than Earth. And I was saying, let me tell you how this comes across. You feel constantly confused by the way people communicate. You feel like you're open hearted and others get really triggered or fearful and keep you at arm's length. You've always felt like the odd person out. And, you know, your closest connection was to your mother for your entire life. And even after she died. And he was like, that is exactly right. And I was like, what I'm saying is, and he was like, that I'm an alien. And I was like, maybe that's what I'm saying. And he goes, that makes 100% sense to me. And I was like, what? Like, this is so bizarre. And then the one other person I said that to, I'm telling her all this stuff and trying not to be like, I think you're an alien reincarnated as a human. And listening to myself, I'm like, what am I saying? And then she was like, I just got back from an extraterrestrial conference this weekend. And I was like,
Of
what? Do
course you
those
did.
things exist? So it's funny because I'm an evidential medium, which means that I like to share information that can be validated because I like proof, you know?
Hmm.
And I'm sharing things like you can't validate that somebody was an alien or that they, you know, that they incarnated from somewhere else. And yet it's funny that when I do share things that are not evidential, my sitters sometimes will be like, I totally knew that forever. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it's okay. So here's where it gets interesting to me. It's like, so I
Yeah.
got a Akashic record reading for the first time,
Oh,
and this
cool.
was like, I was told I was Pleiadian, and I was like, okay, well, sure. I mean, I was like, it doesn't sound off, I guess. And I guess when I look into it though, because I always assume, and maybe this is my earthly way of thinking of things, but we're here. Like this is a place you go that you reincarnate into to learn, right? To experience what you are not, to become, right? To realize that you are the ocean in a drop, not a drop in the ocean, that sort of thing, right?
Mm.
I just don't understand how other beings then like on their end, are they just, oh yeah, everyone at Earth just doesn't understand what's going on. We're all in the same place. Because when I think of the other side, I think of this other place that also aliens technically would not be in. They're in, they're in our dimension, or however you want to describe that. And it just gets confusing because we're over here channeling. Like I watch a lot of people who channel, like Lee Harris, right? And he channels the Z's and Bashar. Like there's so many others that are famous. And it's like, are they coming from the other side, like meaning a place that we're all not at? I get confused. Does that make sense? Like I don't
Well, it
understand like
makes
what
sense.
part is it gets weird to me.
It gets really
Uh
weird to me too, actually. And I think it can be really confusing. I mean, I hear things about when I'm bringing through a spirit, I'll hear that someone who died has now another aspect of their same soul has come through. So, for instance, let's say that a grandfather passes and I'm talking to a granddaughter, and a granddaughter has a child. Um, and her child is another aspect of the same soul that her grandfather was. So, if you think of like segments of an orange, right? That every segment is a different aspect of one soul.
okay.
Well, what if all those souls are like one's living in that time and this was living in another time and they're all experiencing, but they're just one soul? I mean, doesn't that kind of blow your mind a little bit
Hmm.
too?
Hmm.
That like another part of my soul could be living somewhere else in the universe, but in another time period. I mean,
Hmm.
all that stuff starts to freak me out a little bit. But yes, I think it's confusing too. And I'm not sure that I I mean, I'm a relatively new medium too. I've been doing this like 2.5 years. I'm not one of those 30, 40-year people. And I specialize, like, I feel like the place that I'm most comfortable is when I'm talking to people. Now, I'm just, animals come through a little bit, but I talk to the dead people. And then
Mhm.
in terms of like, you could channel angels as well. Or like, I'm comfortable talking to guides or spirit guides at times. But the way that I think of it is outside of this dimension, whether everybody's all in the same place, which I don't pretend, I don't have solid beliefs on at this point in time. Um, I do think there's an all oneness that is beyond comprehension of what our human minds can understand. And I do think that we understand time in a completely different way than people on the other side do. Because I have heard that before, where it feels like
Same. Yeah.
time will go, almost feels like more quickly there, where our lives are kind of spanning out.
Hmm.
And so the unlimited amount of dimensions and and different times totally confuse me. And I
Yeah.
just don't know that yet. And I don't know if I'm supposed to know or if I need to know. Maybe it's just that I'm here to get messages across to people so that their time, walking their soul home is as best as it can be. And maybe that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't even know how we got here. Maybe I watched a documentary last night, and so it's just coming through right now. Uh, anyways, well, look, I brought you on because number one, I've watched your YouTube. I love just how you operate. I mean, you could call it your energy, whatever you want, but just the way you shoot your videos and how you speak with people and your clients, I think is really cool. I think you just have a very unique way of doing that. So I wanted to just speak to you. Number one, I wanted to give people, the audience, an understanding of what a session with you looks like. And I think we agreed we're going to do that today, which I'm excited about. Um, before I do, let's talk about your book.
Sure.
So you have a book coming out or is out. Did
It
it
is
just
out.
launch? Okay.
Yeah. It just came
When
out.
Spirit Speaks. When Spirits Speak.
When
Tell me
spirits.
a tell me a little bit about this book. Why'd you write it? And yeah, let's start there. Why'd you write?
So, well, I always knew I had a lot of books in me.
Okay.
And when I was an online marketing strategist, I thought that I would write a book about sales and women being able to unapologetically make offers because, gosh, it's an epidemic out there.
Oh yeah.
I couldn't get myself to write the book, and I'm not a procrastinator in any way, and I'm extremely prolific. So I was quite puzzled when I couldn't write a book. And then when I started doing this work, I was like, I get it. It's supposed to be about this. And so I actually hired a past client of mine when I was a marketing strategist because she helps people write books. And so that you kind of pay a pretty penny, but they give you an editor and they're like, okay, turn in 25 pages at a time. So this is a how-to book, but it's about my story of how I realized I was a medium. And then I also talk about why I think mediumship matters in the world. And then I have my whole how-to system, um, which I have the 5 C's of mediumship,
Mhm.
which are like confidence, communication, and the clairs. Um, it goes on and on, but there's 5 different C's that we focus on. And those are all the different aspects of mediumship. So I've started feeling like, oh, I think I'm ready to write this book. But the problem is that the last time I wanted to write a book, I was pregnant and like so sick, like throwing up nonstop. And I was like, I don't think that's going to happen. So this time, when I was ready to write this book, I was pregnant again. And it was like, I was so sick even longer. And I got to my 3rd trimester and I was like, I went back to that past client and I was like, she's doing like a 5-day writing challenge. Maybe I'll just try it. So I did the writing challenge. And then in my 3rd trimester, I wrote this in 8 weeks.
Let's
I
go.
just cranked it out. Um, and I really felt like this industry can benefit from someone who is very nitty gritty, step by step, and analytical about how mediumship works. So, when I teach in my development circle other mediums, what I will do is I'll watch a reading and then I'll stop it and I'll be like, let's talk about what just happened and break down what happened. Like, first you
Mhm.
got the impression, then you went straight to interpretation. It was wrong. So, you went back, you held the impression in your mind and you let it unfold and then you understood the meaning. So I like to kind of break that down because when I go to development circles, sometimes it's like you go, you practice, you leave, you go, you practice, you leave.
Mhm.
But this book is about breaking down all the different most challenging aspects. What do you do when there's two spirits present and you are confusing the two? You know, um, What's the difference between working psychically versus mediumistically? What about mediumship ethics? What do you do when you have a shit show reading that doesn't work out? What are all the different reasons that a sitter might say no to you, of which there are many? And I tell my clients 50% of the time you get a no, you're actually right. Because people get sitter amnesia. They're like so focused on what you're saying, they can't think about anything else. It goes on and on. So I wanted to have a how-to book that felt analytical in a very intangible industry where people are constantly wanting more details about how things actually work and then breaking down exactly where in the reading did it go wrong. And there's this example of, you're bringing through a spirit and you do what's called anchoring the link. The sitter's like, yes, I recognize who this spirit is. And then you get a few more yeses and then all of a sudden you start getting no's. Well, why would that happen? And most of the time it's because you've got two and you're attributing evidence from both spirits to only one. So you might get like a yes and then a no and a yes and a no. Or if you just get no, no, no's, I guarantee you somebody's just busted in and they want to talk. And so it's little tiny moments in a reading that can make or break it, where you can stop and just say, look what just happened. You think you have dad, but you actually have grandpa and dad. Now, grandpa's the one who does the fishing and dad's the one that passed from cancer. Can you feel that? Okay, now go back. And then spiritual boundaries. Tell them you will only work with one at a time and ask one to step forward. So this is the kind of stuff where I feel like we could use more of breaking down those moments so that more mediums who have incredible potential can actually get closer to that potential because they know how this is working behind the scenes.
I love that. I love that. Definitely need more of an analytical approach. So that's very cool. How does confidence play a role
Well,
in your
confidence is
mediumship?
one of my
And
5 C's.
yeah, so how do you how does that play a role? But how do you help someone who doesn't have confidence? I feel like confidence in general is a big issue for people just in their day to day.
I love this question. Confidence plays a huge role because we are vibrating human beings. So the more confident you are, generally the higher your vibration will be. And this is actually required to make what we call the mediumistic shift. That mediumistic shift is when you're building up your own spiritual power and blending it with the energy of the spirit world. I know it sounds kind of strange, but it's just you have to reach a certain vibration. So a lot of mediums will say that the spirit world descends a little, you come up a little bit, you meet in the middle. I that feels pretty good to me. Like that sounds like how it works. But when you are more confident, you're going to be at a higher vibration. And mediumship is a practice that requires more than many other professions, confidence in yourself, to be able to sense if your interpretation is on or off, and confidence that spirit will show up. And so this is a huge aspect of mediumship because the second that you get a no and you crumble under that pressure, it's trickier for you to receive spiritual impressions with as much clarity as you would like. And then what happens when our nervous system amps up, our active mind amps up. When our nervous system calms down, our active mind calms down as well. So if you think about being in a meditative state, eventually your mind will get less busy. For anyone who meditates, you'll notice that. If you're in a nervous state, your active mind will it can go into freeze mode, or it can go into, computing and things like that. And so if your active mind comes in where you really just need to be getting out of the way, that's when your interpretation starts to go off. So a little bit about why confidence is so important. But how do you teach someone confidence? One of the things is that learning to be a medium without a sitter is like learning to swim out of water. You need somebody to be able to validate whether or not you're on or off. And the more that you do that, the more you start to understand the way your mediumship works. And something that I teach my students is the idea of resonance versus dissonance. So for you right now, you might think about something that really resonates with you and then think about something that doesn't. Like something that doesn't, you might say, gosh, I love it when I put living cockroaches in my mouth to eat and they're still wiggling. Like if that bothers you, it very much bothers me. I feel, especially like around my chest area, I feel dissonance, like that is not right. That is not right. But if I would say something simple like, my name's Mel Farr, and I was just to say it in my mind, I'm like, yeah, that's resonant. So when you receive a spiritual impression, what you're going to start attuning to is whether it feels resonant or whether it feels dissonant. And so I tell my students, I'm like, ask spirit a certain question. And then when you get something back, If it feels more dissonant, the interpretation is off or it's your active mind. If it feels more resonant, you have a greater chance of being accurate about this. But you have to do enough readings to understand how your mediumship works, because some mediums are more symbolic. Others use like line graphs in certain sides of the body. Others are more like really just looking at a daydream and being like, oh, I think I understand what this means. You have to understand that over time. The other thing I'll do for confidence is I'll put people in really tricky situations where I'll just have them give a reading and tell their sitter to deadpan them or give them resting bitch face. And then they'll just say no, no to everything over and over and over again. And so the client's just like, you know what? F this. Like, I just know I'm going to get a no. So what do? They start to rely on their connection with the spirit, which is exactly what they should be doing. And they're like, I have nothing else I can do in this situation but rely on the spirit. So I give them a lot of different situations like that.
So
And then they'll
good.
get feedback after. I also like to give my beginning students, they have to read, but they don't get any feedback until the end. So instead of getting feedback during, like you would in a professional reading, they just have to sit there and keep going with what they're getting. And they're usually really surprised by how much of it is accurate at the end. So it's training them not to rely on the response of the sitter, but more on their connection with the spirit world.
I love it. Does there have to be any baseline, you think, at all? Like, I mean, can anyone show up to your development circle and you feel like you could turn them into a medium? Because if that's the case, I might be showing up one of these days, if I'm being honest.
I have an analogy for this.
Okay.
So I do believe that every single person is born with the innate abilities to communicate at some level of proficiency with spiritual entities. And so if you think of it like someone playing the piano, now could anyone in the world probably learn to play the piano to some level of proficiency? And I say some, I don't mean like concert pianist. If they really, really put the time and the effort into it, sure. Do some have like, would they have to work very, very hard to hit a low level of proficiency? That would be like my husband, for example. Like, I can't even see him wanting to do this in any way, shape, or form. But if he didn't, he really cared about it, I think he might surprise himself. Would he be like a medium I would pay to see? Oh, hell no. But then you got these people who are quick studies who come in, they're just doing it, you know?
Yeah.
And everything in between. So that's how I look at it, right? It's like you're going to have a concert pianist and you're going to have somebody who can play chopsticks once they try really, really hard.
That's a great analogy. That's amazing. Okay, so we got the book is one way you can learn. Development Circle, which you are actively, or it's open right now. How does it work? How many people can be in it? Do you have to be in person? Can you be?
It's all Zoom. I do everything over Zoom, and it's so
Okay.
fun because it's convenient for me and other humans. So I run 3 different circles right now, and I have 2 that are mixed levels. So we have beginners up to professionals, and then I have an intermediate advanced, and a lot of those people are near working professional or they are professional mediums. And we actually meet for 12 weeks. And I like having an extended time because, like I said, the more you read in certain environments and have certain specific exercises, the more you understand how your mediumship works. And so the development circles are based on the 5 different C's that I have people work on. I don't know why I'm blanking on that right now, but communication in the clears, confidence, community, being a clear channel. So there's just different aspects that are important. But I take about 14 people in each of them. And so we're closing enrollment this week. We have like 9 spots left, which is exciting.
Very cool. And they
And
get it through your website? Is that the best way to?
yeah,
Okay.
mediumshipwithmel.com/learn. If you go to the learn page, that's where the development circle is. And it's a lot of fun. The thing I like most about it is not only that we really break down what's happening during a reading. I also have started giving individual feedback to every single medium during every single class. So I'll watch the readings and say, here's what I loved, and here's what you can work on. We've been getting rave reviews about that. In fact, I send out surveys at week 6 through 12, and I ask all kinds of questions about what they're loving, what they want to improve. We got a 60% response rate, which, if you know online marketing, is really great. And then 21 out of 26 people who responded gave the course or the development circle 10 out of 10, and the other 5 gave it a 9 out of 10. And this has happened for a year and a half now at about those levels. And I think part of it is also that we really create I get lucky. I attract the nicest people. So it's a place you can go where you can practice and not be feeling so scared you're going to shit your pants if you get a no type of thing,
Yeah, yeah.
which happens to every medium, by the way. And if they
For
say that they've
sure.
never been that scared, I promise you, they're lying.
I believe you. That's terrifying, especially if you're dealing with like some of the situations y'all deal with. So much
Yeah.
kid, or I mean, there are some real serious situations where it's a lot on the line for the people you are reading for.
Oh, yeah. Dead is really serious a lot of the time. And
Yeah,
sometimes it's
yeah.
really funny. And
Which
that's
is why that's what it is. You bring a level of humor to it that I really appreciate.
Don't we
You
need
can just
levity
tell.
though? If we're
Yeah,
talking
we
about dead
we
people
do
all day, it's like,
for sure. You definitely bring that to the table. I love that. Um, okay.
yeah,
Do we
let's
want
try
to give
this.
this a go?
Okay, so can we preface a couple things?
Yes.
This is important. So when you and I were talking about this, and you were like, "Hey, I saw you like give a spiritual assessment. Do that, do that." So first of all, spiritual assessments come in two parts, right? Like first time, sometimes I'll read someone psychically, and I'll just touch what I call their spiritual file, right? So that's just psychically, I'm looking at their spiritual journey and what their gifts might be and things like that. And then the second half, sometimes I'll talk to their guides and I will go ahead and bring through messages from there. But I work a lot of the time mediumistically, right? So for past people who have passed as well. So when I was talking to you earlier, I was like, it might be like a mishmash, like free for all, which I don't think I usually do that, but it sounds really fun. However, these are a few things that I always say. And so for anyone watching, hopefully this will be helpful for you, whether you ever sit with me or somebody else. But the way that I explain how mediumship works, I do that at the beginning of every reading, but we already did that, right? And I
Hmm.
also let people know that a medium should never be prodding you for information. You should never be emotionally manipulated in any way. If I stumble upon anything that's too private or trauma related for you, then you can always advocate for yourself and just say, you know what, I don't really want you to cover that part. Understood?
Yeah.
Great. So you should always be able to advocate for yourself in a reading of any sort. Okay. And I'll just leave it at that for now. Okay. So
That's
if
beautiful.
let me think. Let me just feel into this for a hot second. You know what? I'm gonna do I'm gonna start out like a spiritual assessment as I would do. So
Yeah. Let's
we'll
do it.
um we'll look at your spiritual file, we'll talk to your guides, and then if you get a little hello from heaven from anybody who's passed, is that okay with you?
I would love that.
Okay, great. If
Absolutely.
because spiritual gifts are so easily associated with personal development, if something comes up personally, I'll ask permission, but then you can tell me yes or no if you want to talk about it, okay?
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. All right. So I'm just going to take a second. Actually, I'll just do this. I'm going to take a second and blend. So I'll be working psychically first. So I always tell my students, this is when I expand my aura and I blend it into yours, but I'm not connecting with a spirit at this point. All right, right away, the first thing that I have to say is that you've always been a beyond curious type of person, but it's really funny because as soon as I lean into your curiosity about yourself, I also hear the phrase curiosity killed the cat. So this is really funny because I'm getting images of when you were younger too, and it makes me feel as if you were always wondering about different things, but also your interest really lies in terms of people too, like being really interested in other people. But when I hear curiosity killed the cat, it makes me feel as if there were times where you have been curious and would have gotten you in trouble. Do you understand what I'm bringing through so far?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So, and also, do you understand being really curious about animals, especially when you were younger and things like that? Because I
Yes.
feel like, yes, I'm seeing you around like different animals, and I'm actually getting different psychic impressions that remind me of myself, like catching snakes, catching frogs, things like that when I would have been younger. And so, this is the thing, like your curiosity is. This is interesting. It's always been about other living creatures and people, if you can understand that. So, understanding how people tick and why they do things. Now, I will say out loud, like that probably won't surprise people and maybe it's not all that profound because you're interviewing other people and wanting to know about them, but the way this comes across is that it very much matches up. You're also somebody who along your spiritual journey has always wanted to well, this is interesting. I see a big 180 for you. um Okay, so the curiosity has stayed forever, but curiosity in terms of spirituality was dormant for a very long time. And all, when you go through a door and it flips like this, so when you walk through, it flips the other way.
Yep.
That you did a huge 180. I'm also getting the age of 22 and 26. So it's just interesting if any events happened during that time that you could relate to that have to do with the flipping of the door. But it makes me feel as if you did a whole 180. And it's really interesting because what happened is something really intense happened for you personally, and it woke you up. So then you started being very introspective about self. However, you've been introspective your whole life, but this was in a more conscious way than before, I would say. Also, I'm sorry, I'm going to go into something personal if I can. It's about relationships. Do you mind if it's not
Oh my
anything
gosh,
super negative?
lay it all out. I really
Okay,
do
so
not
I
care.
also feel that you've had like a pretty intense heartbreak in the past. And so that but there's one in particular that I'm talking about, and you should know exactly what I'm talking about when I
Mhm.
say it. Okay, so that one, and I feel that this happened before the door swung. Do you
Yep.
understand? Okay. And that actually was like a catalyst to this because you had to, oh man, I think you got your heart broken. It was not good. And it made you be like, it was a feeling of not enoughness actually underneath all of these other stacked feelings. So we're talking about emotional stack of like being in swampland is the way that I would describe it. I'm not laughing at you. I'm just saying like you
Okay.
totally know this now and you're able to
Oh
look back
yeah.
and see what I'm talking about. But you
Yes.
understand that when that ended, you were drowning in an emotional swamp, not knowing up from down. It felt like blindsided to you is the way that this breakup happened. And so for you, you just had to start asking some big questions. Now, it does seem to me that this, I'm going to call it a spiritual awakening, just for lack of anything else. And I get like 2 to 3 years later, potentially, there's two to three something. So it makes me feel like that happened. And then relatively shortly after, you're going into this like this questioning of things, questioning of self. And basically what happens in this process is that you built back up confidence as the you that you are today, and you had a major change. So all those intrinsic parts of you that would be curiosity and actually a really loving heart. Oh, okay. Also, a really loving heart that got buried underneath some things. And then the relationship exposed a lot of those parts of yourself. And you're like, I have to get back to the way that I was when I was younger before a lot of that bullshit happened. Also, it has to do with family friction and things such as that. Do you understand that?
Mhm.
Yep. So a lot of that family friction put a lot of ego layers and things. That's what I call them, like a lot of barriers on you. And then this person did not want to put up with them. You go to the spiritual awakening, you have that, and all of a sudden you're very introspective, but you get back to that curiosity about other people. And I have to say, one of the best things that came out of that, which you have to know that it's a gift by now, I believe, but you're even understanding in this moment just how much of a gift it is, I will say, and you will after this conversation. But it wakes you up to this open-heartedness with other people and curiosity of other people without having to be someone that you're not, which is what you did a lot of the time earlier in your life, especially in the 20s. You can understand that.
Mhm. Oh yeah.
And you're understanding this like the kind of rupture. And again, I know there's probably other things, but this is the one that sticks out to me the most of like a peeling of the onion and getting back to self. Um,
It completely wrecked me, and it was my senior year in high school, right before I went
mm,
to college. And then my entire college career, which is 5 to 6 years,
the
I
shit show.
would dub yeah, shit show. It was exploration. It
I
was
feel like.
throwing everything out. I went completely like I was a Christian when I was younger, and I went, okay, nope, I don't believe in anything. I'm gonna try anything and everything, and it
Hmm.
left me very confused and
Yeah,
sad.
that's the emotional swamp.
hmm Very
Mm.
sad. Yeah, and then
Well, I think the term too, if this is okay, can I
yeah, go for
like
it.
I do hear the word depression, so it wasn't
Yeah.
just sad. Do you understand?
hmm
And
hmm
it would have been something. It also makes me feel like I have to give a round of applause because it feels like you had some support around that as well, is the way that I
hmm
would say it.
hmm
And that is a piece of yourself that it kind of cracked open, and you were like, I need to go outside of myself and find. This is interesting. You know, you're a really smart cookie, which I mean, I can see that from talking to you and watching you. But the thing is, emotional your EQ is actually very, very high. And I would just say that because, and this is true of all of us, that you grow up in a certain framework with really strict belief systems is the way that I would have to say it, right? And then when you break those apart, there is like an emotional intelligence in you understanding that you need an objective view of your life. Do you understand why that's coming to me in that way?
hmm
And that you actually went to seek it. 90% of our population will not consciously make that recognition and then act on it. It's
Yeah.
crazy. So that's an amazing just validation for you about going through this as well. And I actually feel, Oh, wait, there's another event that happened after the breakup as well, if you can understand that, that blows it up even more. Um, so this
Huge
is
event.
later on.
And it was when I was 27. Yeah.
Is this why we're saying like 21, 22, 26, 27? Like those are my years?
I would say the my 20s was definitely
This is,
shit show,
oh, shit.
sad. I was very depressed, yeah. But
Oh,
it was 20 gosh, what was it? 2021, 2022. So it wasn't
mhm.
too I'm 33.
Okay.
That was when I lost everything. I mean, I lost financially everything. Right before my
Wow.
first daughter was born, lost my job of 10 years. Uh, very addicted to substances at that time. I hit a low, lost
Yeah.
everything.
So, and what I was going to say about this rupture too is that it feels even bigger than the first.
Way
But
bigger.
it's interesting. But I would say that the first one was quite comparable because of the stage of life that you were at. Like it
Yeah.
felt almost as impactful as this next one as well. Um,
My senior year, this girl cheated on me, and I truly think I loved her. Like I really like I was a senior, and I know
100%.
that now. But I was like, I love this girl. She was my everything,
Yeah.
and the way I found out was horrible. It was almost like I felt like a I was embarrassed because it was like obvious to
Yeah.
everybody else, and I didn't know that, and I felt
Yeah.
very like blindsided, and everyone else was like, "Brother, how did you not know that?"
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, really, 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 really hurt
An
me. And so
identity
I went
crisis.
into college. Yeah, I went into college pretty, Mel, I would say pretty
Mhm.
jaded. I was
Mhm.
definitely like, it shook me up pretty good,
Yeah.
big
That's
time.
really hard. So blindsided, that's what I
Hmm.
hear too, where it's like you just feel like you get hit by a bus, whipped around
Hmm.
type of thing. Yeah. However, this is the thing that I have to say that's really powerful about all these experiences is that they've been incredibly productive. I mean, you came into a few different crashes, but and this is tricky. I'm always very careful about this when I'm reading anyone. Um, did you agree to everything exactly in the way? It feels to me very much as if you agreed to have significant losses in your life and actually more experiential than loss of people so
Hmm.
far, if you can
Hmm.
understand that.
Hmm.
But they're relationships and people who are still living, a lot of them, if you can
Yep.
understand that.
Yep.
And also, so do I have permission to say a little bit more about in immediate
Absolutely.
family? Okay,
Hmm.
so I also feel friction between at least one parental figure, maybe even two, if you can understand that as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and so again, belief systems just crashing up against each other. And then, so they are a part of these identity fractures because we get raised in these certain belief systems. And then when you break away from them, that's been really, really tricky for your parents and your family. And in
Hmm.
fact, the more that I talk about this, it makes me feel like there's still distance, or at least there was distance for a period of time that would have been quite painful. Do you understand this as well?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these are all the things that are things that are ushering you down your spiritual pathway, that are bringing you to a place where your your one of your first purposes in walking your soul home was, and this is true for a lot of us, but it was to reclaim your own identity, like your soul identity is the way that I would say it,
I love
and
that.
getting closer and closer to that. I also very much feel that you're meant to be like a speaker in a lot of different ways, because you create like a really comfortable space for people. You're good with your words, so for you to be a storyteller for other people is a really big thing. Also, for you to be somebody who uses your intuition and just your awareness and your EQ of other people, which is really a high EQ, really means like communicating spirit to spirit a lot of the time.
Hmm.
And your ability to do that is something that helps with the vision that's going on at this moment. So you could talk to people. This is really interesting. Because of the family that you came from, you can also talk to people with very different belief systems and you can find things that are in common. So you create a bridge, if you understand that as well. Which
I
any
love
kind
that.
of work that you would do. Do you understand being a serial entrepreneur as well?
Hmm.
This is the thing that I see this over and over again. And it's like, you two have this in common. You're both serialpreneurs. You're both always done your own thing. You always will. You will never. This is funny too. If you were hired at a job, you'd probably get fired really quickly. And I say that because you don't like to work within like the confines of somebody else's
Cannot
um
stand it. Very
can't
hard for me.
I mean, and for you to be in an office that's not your own,
Cannot stand
can't
it.
stand it. Wouldn't last a day. Oh my God. You and I both on that one too.
No,
But I
you're
can
nailing. I just want to. I don't know if it's hard to pause or stop on these things, but I
I'll
just
go for
want
it.
everyone listening to know that she's absolutely nailing this, and I don't mean that to say
He's not paying me.
no. I mean this is. incredible. We talk about my family. So raised a Christian, and it was a huge deal, my stepping away. And I'm very proud of myself for making that jump because it was such a big,
It's still a huge deal.
yeah, it still is. And but it was such a big move for me to say, no, I chose myself what I believe as opposed to being told what I believed. And I think I had to experience a lot of different things to come to this conclusion. And where I am now, even just the love I see for my family, like I almost would never want to crush my dad and his beliefs, his Christianity. Like I care so much about him now, and I see that that's a role that he's, um, like I don't have that need anymore. I used to want to like prove everyone like my way was
Yeah, yeah,
the way, and now I'm kind of like, no, it's okay. Like I love my brother. Me and my brother butted heads big time, and now I'm
yeah,
like, man, it's okay. If you want to be a Christian, that's okay. And I
yeah,
actually bring up things to make them feel comfortable now. Like I tell them that I pray a lot now, and I tell my mom that I pray often, and I talk about God openly. I didn't say the G word for a long time
yeah,
in my college years, and now I bring it up just because I want them to feel comfortable, not for me, but I want my parents to feel like, okay, he's
yeah,
okay, because it got dark for them. I mean,
yeah,
it got scary for them, I would say.
yeah.
Um, and so I don't want to toot my own horn, but I'm proud of where I went because it was a big full circle,
You
and
should be.
it was a lot of experimentation. And it's what this channel is about. There's been experiences that have happened to me that I think without those experiences, like the losing all my money, like just some of the paranormal ones, if you will, like
Yeah,
those have moved me um, to where I am today. So it's very cool.
100%. And that's
And
why,
I've tried a lot of entrepreneur things too, by the way. I've tried like my friends know me as that guy. Like I had a candle company because I loved, I mean, I and but I
the
did I wait,
serialpreneur, yeah.
what's interesting is I did well with all of these things. Anything I ever did, I did well. And so it probably confuses people when they look at my past because they're like, why didn't you stick to any of these things? I'm like, well, none of them felt right. Like I remember getting my candles in it's probably like 40, 50 plus doors, as far
Yeah.
as, which is decent,
It's
in
really
Canada.
decent for a product-based business. People
And
don't.
it didn't move me, Mel. Like I didn't
Yeah,
feel anything. And that confused me because I was like, why do I not feel good about it?
yeah,
Um, but I look at my journey and I do feel like it was all leading to this. Like whether it
yeah,
be the podcast, I don't know, but I just mean this world. I feel like I'm at least home and where I'm supposed to be. And how this plays out, I think there's still a lot more to be seen here. But I feel very excited to be in the spiritual world and talking about it openly. And
yeah.
yeah.
Well, and what's interesting too is that when I look at this, I see like a really long pathway and you're like on this much of it, which is great because a lot of well, in terms of like, let's say the unfoldment that is yet to come.
Mhm.
So that's not to devalue anything. It's like your whole journey there. It was a lot of it's like bumper cars, but a lot
Oh
more
yeah.
intense than that. Like just
Mhm.
getting muffed up and all these things. And then you've overcome a lot of things. And now in terms of this path of I would say like greater soul evolution, if the path is this long, it's like you've done that much of it. And that's the good news because I feel that there are a lot of really important relationships coming your way. And the other thing I'll have to say is um, all of the relationships in your life right now are the best they've ever been. So I know about like your parents that you just said that, but there's a lot of different relationships in your life. And your ability to make new connections and hold them if you choose is another big piece that's here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's exciting that
That's super
you're
exciting.
coming about it in that way.
I'm very excited about that. I still feel in my heart like I'm like, gosh, so many more things I want to do. It's not like my life is perfect. I mean, I'm still there's parts of me financially where I'm like, okay, I wish I was a little more consistent with some of these things. I have two daughters now, and I'm like, I'm hoping I'm getting to a place now where we're starting to be
Yeah.
able to at least like get on that road of consistency here. But overall, very excited. I feel like there's a lot more to be done. Definitely.
Amen, sir. Do you want me to try? Do we have time if you want me to
Yeah,
try?
yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I'm good if you're good.
Okay. I'm just going to take a second because I'll communicate a little differently in this one. All right. So I don't ever talk about guides in terms of trying to define your interpretation of what they look like, right? That's less useful. I kind of work with them as a unit. But the thing that I have to say right away is you understand that there's a very childlike, like we talked about curiosity before. But sometimes on the team, I'll get like what feels like a younger type of energy or a playful type of energy, I will say. And It makes me feel as if one of your guides really has that about them, and the interpretation I see of them is actually like a young boy, and I rarely see that. Usually with guides, I'm not always aware of that. It's more of a unit, but what I find is a lot of times people's guides will shine through them. Okay. And so for you, you would understand what I get from them also is that you would understand not just the curiosity, but when you are in your most natural element, highly playful as well. And also, living dog for you, do you understand this? That you or a living pet. I feel like I see something about like being really playful with a pet, an animal, but also with kids. And I know that you have two daughters because you said that, but that playful and curious element, and it's very like young at heart in certain ways. And I'm not making any prediction in terms of how many times you've been around planet Earth because I'm not aware of that. But that aspect of you really, really shines through from your spirit guides. And one of the things that it makes me feel is that we do this in this way because we knew you were going to go through a lot of hardships. And the thing about you that's going to draw so many people in terms of the messages that you have to share would be that playful energy that makes people feel comfortable. So they just keep saying youthful, youthful. Do you understand why they would be bringing that across in this way? Um,
Yeah, because probably because I think sometimes I want to make it myself more serious, or like not serious, but I want to be professional, I guess is the word. But my natural
Sure.
personality is I'm very silly. I'm very
That's the
silly.
thing. Playful, silly, all those things. And they would be saying, you don't need to work too hard to be too professional because the fact is that you are more eloquent with your words than you realize. And I would say that already. Um, and so the playfulness is actually one of the gifts that you have that you should really focus on letting out as much as possible. This is something that makes people feel really, really comfortable in terms of because they're talking about speaking again, speaking again. So it does make me feel as if you being able to speak and hold an audience is a powerful thing. So from your learnings, continuing to share them, that would be a really important thing as well. Um,
I would actually
okay.
say that when I was younger, a lot of my time was a better word than professional is cool. Like I spent way
Yeah.
too much time trying to be cool,
Yeah.
and I've absolutely dropped that as I've gotten older. And it's something that I feel I've overcome, and I'm very happy about that because now I can definitely today I could be silly. I don't care so much about looking cool or how I
Yeah.
look, and I cared a lot about that growing up.
Yeah. Also, I would say for you, one of your most dominant clairs as well would be clear cognizance. So clear cognizance is clear knowing, right? And for you, one of the reasons that things felt so combative, and the thing actually for you, anger. We didn't talk about this earlier, but they're telling me how angry you felt about a lot of things earlier on as well. And one of the reasons that you got so angry about things was that you could feel the dissonance. Remember I talked earlier about dissonance versus resonance?
Mhm.
So you're being told to put on a certain belief system, but your claircognizance knows that this is not ultimately where you're supposed to end up. And so there was a knowing that no one else it looks like in your family had from the very beginning. And it's really interesting because as much as the way they tell me is as much as you were immersed in different belief systems, and I would say immersed, it feels like it was like everywhere in the house,
Mhm.
and everywhere in experiences, right? Things like that. And so as much as you were immersed, they would just say that claircognizantly, it never felt like the right fit from the very beginning. But then when you were really angry, what anger does is it makes it harder for us to access our claircognizance. So what's happening now is you understand, they're showing me this image. So for you, you can also be extremely spontaneous, which has been tricky for you becoming a parent, right? Because sometimes you
Mhm.
have to plan more. And they're laughing
Yes.
about this because they're like, he's not always good at planning. But but you love to be spontaneous. You get a kick out of that. Like for you to wind up somewhere and see some cool stuff and not know his plan, like this is one of your favorite things.
Yeah.
And it's because claircognizance is so strong in you that if you get a pull to go into the store, if you get a pull to eat that thing, it's like they're showing me sometimes you're like, oh, I really want that food. But it will be like something that drops in out of nowhere that gives you that really strong pull. And that's your claircognizance. And so now they want you to be more and more aware of the fact that when you feel pulled to do this and pulled to do that, absolutely go after that. But it is tricky when you're in, your human suit right now too, because there is a certain amount of structure that is needed for the responsibilities that you have in your life, but not to demonize that spontaneous part of you because you understand that other people have done that to you your whole life. They haven't liked that spontaneous part, or you've always been
Mhm.
told to be more this. And they're kind of fighting back against that and saying, you don't need to do that. It's just there's a time and place for everything. Your spontaneity is a big part of your creativity, and I also feel it would be a big part of your abundance as well. And
Wow.
so not letting that come away. Uh, what else? Oh yeah, I just feel so when you get that sudden knowing about something, just trust it as much as you can. And it doesn't mean that you get a sudden knowing and you make some huge, rash, crazy decision. It just means that you pay more attention to it. And there may be some interpretation involved, like I said, like being in a medium. Sometimes you have to have some of that interpretation involved. Also, I keep seeing you with animals. Okay. So, um, a living pet makes me feel that way, but I also feel that your connection with animals would be really strong. Do you understand why they would tell me that?
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Okay. So they just make me feel like it's not I'm not saying you're like an animal communicator, but I mean, if you were trying to communicate with animals, it's like you understand the needs or you can anticipate the needs more than the average Joe. So that's definitely something that comes to me about like spiritual gifts or propensity in certain areas.
That's so
Um,
funny. I
oh,
got
are
my
you
guy Moby. He's right below me right now. He's chilling.
Oh, I know, so sweet. Also, are you okay with hellos from heaven? You said you were okay with hellos
Oh
from
yeah,
heaven.
yeah,
Okay, you definitely have a grandfather here who's really, really loving towards you, I just have to say. Is this on mother's side? Do you understand that?
yeah,
Okay, yeah.
yeah.
That's what it feels to me because then he shows me the face of moms. I'm like, oh, your grandpa on mother's side. And that feels like a really strong, close connection,
Let's
especially when you were
go.
so lovely. Also, there's a camping reference or something like that. Do you understand? Unless I'm bringing that in from last weekend because I went camping.
Mm,
I just feel like this is a huge hello from heaven. There's a lot of acknowledgement about your spiritual journey so far. So that's really important. Um, oh
he's
wait.
the only one, by the way, on that side for me. He's the only one that's passed away, and it's so funny that he's the first one that came through, the very first medium I went, and he's
Oh
always
yeah.
popping back up, and it's so fun because it's.
It's
I feel like I
interesting
have a good
because
relationship with him now,
you
which is fun.
understand, like, I feel like I also feel like there's a paternal energy for here too, but you understand being closer to him now that he's on the other side than you would have been when
Yes,
you were here? Okay.
yes.
That's the way it feels to me too, so that's really a big thing, but I feel like you were saying, there's a way that you can have common values with those people who were and are religious, because he would have been a religious figure as well, if you can
Hmm,
understand. He
hmm.
was a part of that whole group of people, and so it's really interesting. I have the same thing with my mom where she's more religious, I'm not, but yet mediumship has brought us like really close because we both feel like we have that connection to something bigger. Um, yeah, so I just feel like you have a lot of validation for all the journeys that you've taken over. Also, I think there's an understanding here. Do you understand the people in your family like really despising your tattoos?
Yeah, my mom had a really hard time with it.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Very hard time.
My
Would
father's so
cry. I'd be
I
like, "Oh,
know,
mom,
she's, like, so upset about it. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, what is this?" He's like, "Oh, they hate those tattoos. They hated the tattoos." Why are you bringing that up for me right now? It's
that's
just
so
funny
funny."
because there's, like it's just talking about the journey you went through and how much of this and then how there is more. Your mom has found slightly more piece of it, even though she can't stand the sight of it still. You understand that?
Yeah, I would say that's probably true.
Yeah, I feel that she's found a little bit of it. Where are we going with this? Um, grandpa. Yeah. I'm just getting all this push about you. I know I said it a million times, so not to beat a dead horse, but presenting and speaking is going to be a big thing for you. Um,
Wow.
you've either already spoken on a few stages or you're going to. Um,
Can I say
so
something?
yeah,
Just for when I do my visualizations, I don't know why I do it, but I visualize myself on a stage looking out.
yeah, that'll happen. I'm pretty sure. And you can let me know when it does, because it's a for me it feels very when if. But here's the thing I'll say: we all have timelines, and we all have certain gifts that make us have a higher propensity towards certain ways of expressing them, and so we have free will as well. So that's why I always tell people, like, I am cautious with predictions because there's so many factors, but I feel that. I feel like you being a presenter, you continuing to speak, to interview, but I really see you on stage in a lot of different ways. Also, you did say you've had a lot of different businesses, but I do see you as an inventor. So it's not just services, it's also products type of things. But that feels more past to me than it does to future, to be honest. Future feels more like connecting with people and things of that sort. Um,
I
but
love the idea of speaking. I don't know what it is, but I don't know. I constantly think about that, whether I don't know. I want to impact people and I actually want to do it in a big way. And I'm okay to say that now. I know like in the past I felt like that was like a real cocky or weird thing to say, but I want to be on a big stage. Like I'm down to go for it in that way.
yeah,
Um,
yes, you
I don't
are.
know what I would talk about yet at this point. Like I think I got a while to go, but I do see that. I could
Yeah,
definitely see that happening.
I do too. It does look like a pretty big stage in my mind's eye.
Okay. Or small, it's fine. I mean, I'll take whatever I can get, but I just more mean I want to play a big role. Like I want to, whatever that means. I just want to impact a lot of people, and I'm like just recently getting okay with saying that, because for a
Yeah.
long time I felt like that was a weird thing to say, or I used to like whenever I did those like worksheets where you sat around and like, what am I good at? What am I? And I would always
Oh,
go
yeah.
back to mentoring people, and I was like,
Yeah.
that's such a weird thing to say. Like it feels so like corny slash
Mm.
I don't know, like life coach. It just feels weird to say that. And it's like, and then I
Right.
look at my life, right? And I go like, what have you done to be able to teach anyone anything? But I got to tell you, there's a piece of me, I just feel like I'm good at connecting with people but not about like, how's the weather? Horrible small
Yeah,
talk
no, you
guy.
only like deep conversations.
Hmm.
I understand.
But when it comes to that, I feel, yeah, it's what I want to do. I think in my core of cores is like, I want to impact people
Sure.
in a special way, not just,
I could see
I
that.
don't know.
And maybe something that would help is that I think when it comes to a good teacher, it's not just about knowledge, because I think sometimes we feel like, who am I to XYZ? But teaching is also about having empathy and understanding how to use words to explain concepts or analogies, right? And so those are just skills that teachers happen to have that not everybody has. So it's not necessarily coming from a place of knowing more, but knowing how to connect with someone else so that you can help them open doors that they can't do as well on their own,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I love that.
Sometimes we have to change the way that we see it, but those are actually skills of yours. And language for you is actually one of your top skills, being able to express, which it's funny because there was a lot of non-expressing and stifling for a
Uh-huh.
good chunk of your early life, especially when we
Uh-huh.
go back to your 20s again. So there was a lot of coping in poor ways and then refusing to have conversations. Whereas now, having conversations is one of your favorite things to do. Do you understand?
Yeah. Yeah. Got really into drugs. And I don't say that as it was part of my journey. I'm neither here nor there about it, but it was a battle. And it's been about like 18 years of something.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's still a battle in a lot of ways, but it's something I'm definitely um, yeah. So anyways, that just made a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense to me, for sure.
There you go. There's
Yeah.
a little piece of what I do during readings. A
That's
little
so
bit of
cool.
mediumistic from Grandpa, spirit guides, then.
I mean, gosh, it's funny because for me, I'd say on this side, I just want to say once again to the audience, just absolutely spot on, Mel. And I love the way you do it. I've been in a couple of readings. You just have a very fun way of delivering it. And I think you too, just so you know, you have a very, even though you're new, you probably already know this, but you're very good at it.
Thank you. I
You're very
love,
good at it.
I just feel like clarity, right? I just had a session with this energy worker woman. She's kind of expensive, so I see her like once a quarter at most. But when I'm stuck on something in my life, I call up Susan. And it's so nice to be on the other end of like, this woman is exceptional. She is exceptional. She has changed my life. I like go in and I feel stuck, and I feel that I have a very high EQ, but I'll be like, I can't figure this out with so and so, and she'll be like, here's what's happening. And first I'm really angry about it, and then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I see it. Okay, I'm okay. Because we all need that objective view.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's nice to feel um, that you are seen and validated. And I think that's one of the most
Mhm.
powerful things about getting a reading when it's well done, is that you actually feel very much at home with
Mhm.
who you are, and you
Yeah.
feel seen. Being seen and acknowledged by other people is one of the most powerful things we can do for other humans, even people we disagree with. And that's
Yeah.
why I love it so much.
Yeah. No, I could see that. So what you just did there, is that normal to go about where because you at the end did the hellos from heaven. You
Mm,
connected with my grandfather. Is that mainly what you're doing most of the time? Is a classic mediumship where you are connecting to
yeah.
loved ones on the other side? Are you thinking of doing that? Because with me, you were kind of like you were rattling off journey slash past. That was a lot of fun, and I feel like if you aren't doing that, you should consider it because that
I am
was
doing that.
what.
But
Okay,
it's interesting. I'm not really giving like full on psychic readings, which I'm kind of like, that would be pretty fun. But that was like, so okay. Let me explain one more thing really quick because this could be
hmm
helpful. I do
hmm
spiritual assessments. Spiritual assessments, they're usually for psychics or mediums, and that's when I do like looking at your spiritual journey psychically and then connecting with your spirit team. But if you consider someone's entire aura surrounding their body like their energetic field, something that's really fun that I teach are psychic files. Okay, so just imagine that there's a file system, energetic file system. It could be health, relationships, spiritual. And so that's why I tell people, when I look at your spiritual file, I'm just taking out the file on your spiritual journey. However, a lot of the time something personal will come up. And it's kind of funny because before I got on this call, I was just like, what's going on with Jordan and this breakup? This, like, leave me alone. I'm not ready for this yet. And I was like, oh my God. All I could think about was like this horrible, horrible breakup you had that had been life altering. And I was like, oh my God, am I just making weird shit up about Jordan? Which I still ask that question. And I got on and I was like, oh no, this is a thing. Like, here it is again, you know? So you just have to, yeah, I do that stuff, but I don't do just full readings. I'm kind of like, I'm all about the dead people.
I like that. I like that about you. I like that you're all about the dead people. Oh my goodness, Mel,
Thank you
this was
so
so
much.
fun. I mean, I really appreciate it. I hope this gets 1 million views for you. I mean, I think,
I do too.
yeah, I really do. I mean, I think what you do is incredible. It would be an honor to learn from you. So anyone out there, like, she has spots available, go and swoop those up, or at the very least get a reading, because that was awesome.
Cool.
That was a lot of fun. So
Well, thank you
really,
so much for having me. I'm really honored. And yeah, ditto on all the things you said about
all right, let's go. Well, we
connecting
will
with
stay
somebody.
connected. I feel like we will. I
I
just
would
feel
love
it.
that. Thank you so much.
Okay. Well, I'll link everything down below. Any parting message, anything you want to leave with the audience before we bounce today?
Yeah, actually, this just comes to me right now where I feel like we would be silly if we weren't acknowledging that this is a time of a lot of division right now, right? And I believe something that came from my interaction with you, so just putting the spotlight on you for a moment, is your story of overcoming and your relationships changing so vastly, even though the belief systems haven't changed. That is something I think for people to take a moment to think about, because I do think that getting in touch with that spiritual aspect of ourselves is here not just for us to go on our soul evolution, but for us to think about how we can use that with other people in the world right now. And I can't think of a better use of it. And it's actually in chapter 2 of my book is all about why mediumship matters. It matters because our connections with people on this earth matter, and who we are and how we are very much matters. And so it's totally about having a good time, but it's also about being introspective and understanding that your choices are not just things that go and dissipate and are fleeting. They will remain with you forever. And so you want to think about them.
Beautiful. Beautiful. All right, Mel. Well, I will keep you posted when this launches, but this was fun. I had a good
This is
time.
so fun.
This was a good one.
Thank you so much.
No,
We'll definitely be in touch for
all
sure.
right. All right. Cheers,
Okay.
Mel.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.